Here we go. Hello, Robert Browning. Here we go.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys.
Oh, I got to do this. I have to mute for Facebook.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is the day after the Super Bowl. It is Valentine's Day. It is the beginning of the dark ages in sports. If you love football, like we do, like we should, as God intended, welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Jeremy KOLOK is your Soundscape stylist. And Shannon, as the Rams went on that 15-play, 70-something yard drive for the winning touchdown, aided by a lot of penalties, especially down there in the red zone, you, Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, darn near nailed the final score. If the Bengals would have just stopped the Rams and the final would have been 20-17, you said Bengals 20-16. You for a while, and I was thinking that whole way, final couple of minutes of the game, I'm like, Shannon nailed this thing. She got the Bengals score. She said 2016. It's going to be 27. No, you said 2017. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 2016. Whatever it was. Yeah, I wanted you to be right. You were so close.
I wanted me to be right too, Chris, and I was feeling that way too. But the Rams made a couple moves and just penalty after penalty on that drive that just kept giving Rams chances to take a shot at the end zone. I started to realize that I wasn't going to be right on that prediction, and even more so on the idea that the Rams were going to take it because they were draining that clock through that last drive. And even though the Bengals had all 3 timeouts, they just couldn't get it done once they did get the ball back.
Yeah, Bengals, my goodness, they led through most of that second half. Early in the game, I mean, it sure looked like the Rams, the first few possessions, I had a bad feeling it could have been Rams by double digits in the Super Bowl. But credit to the Bengals for coming back and taking the lead and leading. It must, break the hearts of Bengals fans because for a third Super Bowl now, if you count those Super Bowls in the 80s that were single digits and so close that they lost to the San Francisco 49ers. Once again, the Bengals play well in a Super Bowl. They have an opportunity to win, but they don't do it. And once again, Shannon, Vegas with the point spread, at one point it was 4.5, then it went down to like 3.5, winds up being a 3-point game. Once again, as so often is the case, Vegas knew what they were talking about.
Yes. And in that case, with picking the Bengals, you and I are still correct, sort of, kind of. We did pick them to win outright, but picking against the spread, we would have been right there as well. And then also, that a lot of people, when we took our, everyone's Super Bowl predictions and scores, most of them went over that 48.5 mark, which was the over-under. And this one ends with 43 total points scored. I thought it was going to go higher when the second half started the way it did with that quick Bengals 12 seconds in touchdown, thanks to a maybe or maybe not face mask on Jalen Ramsey that had him turned around into the ground. But that was it for the Bengals. Really was that those first 12 seconds. It kind of felt like, here we go, Kansas City all over again, but just wasn't the way last night for the Bengals.
Yeah, my goodness. Let's check in with Jeremy KOLOK as well. Jeremy, the 3 of us picked the Bengals to win. The 3 of us were wrong. Coming up, by the way, at 7:05, the guy who picked Rams, and he had them 38-34. So he had Rams by 4. Ultimately, they won by 3. Coach A, Paul Alexander, will join us, his analysis of this Super Bowl. But Jeremy, how did you feel about last night's game?
It entertained me, and that's all I can ask for, really. But I was just surprised that the Bengals rush defense. I mean, the Rams could not run the ball to save their life. I don't know if they had a positive rushing play until the 4th quarter, if at all, the Rams, like a net positive rushing play. So that really surprised me, and really to the end, it came down to it felt like Joe Burrow was making incredible throws with 0 time to
Yeah.
throw the ball, and then there was just that one play where he had even less time, and he couldn't get rid of the ball because Aaron Donald, who might be one of the best football players of all time, just was already wrapped around him. So it just seemed like they just lost that magic, right toward the
Yeah.
end where it would have been a huge ask for them to keep it going, in my opinion. But it was entertaining. It was a good game.
Very true. And Shannon, a couple of things that Jeremy mentions that so true. Number one, you really felt the pressure on Joe Burrow every time he dropped back to pass. You really felt that, and you saw it. It's like he has less time than he's used to. He knew it was going to come, but he had to get rid of that football quickly. And Jeremy mentioned the defense, Shannon, of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep.
In general, other than that long game-winning drive by the Rams, I was very impressed all day long by the Bengals defense. It was not a unit that we were expecting to come up big. We knew they would have to play kind of above their heads for the Bengals to win this thing. But I thought it was a very impressive defensive performance until that long final drive by the Rams by that Bengals defensive unit.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the just the stats breakdown for this game. It's pretty much head to head, except when you look at the sacks. Obviously, the Rams got just a few more than the Bengals, but the difference, you see 2 interceptions on the Rams side to none on the Bengals. I think anyone who looks at this without looking at the score says, well, the Bengals would have had to have won, right? They got 2 interceptions. Those takeaways should turn into points somewhere, but ultimately no. And I mean, admittedly, I'm on the couch watching, and Matthew Stafford throws one. I think there's one. Where's the other one? And it came later again,
Yeah.
but ultimately that didn't come back to haunt them in the way that it very well could have, and what I think usually would, specifically at a Super Bowl level.
Yeah, usually does. And, Chris Collinsworth alluded to it at halftime, and I thought it was going to really manifest itself when Odell Beckham Jr. went out with that injury. Collinsworth said that's going to be big in the second half. And you would have thought that the Bengals could have then really focused on Cooper Kupp, really kind of try to take him away and make Matthew Stafford go elsewhere. So credit to, and he was the MVP, Cooper Kupp, ultimately 8 receptions, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns for Cooper Kupp, including the game winner. And, as much as I do praise that Bengals defense, what needed to happen, you needed, especially with Odell Beckham Jr. out for the entire second half and, parts of that first half, you needed to find a way to, take away Cooper Kupp. And I mean, statistically the best wide receiver in football this year. How do you take away Cooper Kupp?
The Triple Crown.
It's darn near impossible, as we saw. Yeah.
That second half, and you mentioned Chris Collinsworth commentary. He kept mentioning like the lack of weapons, I'm like, is Cooper Kupp not there? Because I feel like I keep seeing him. Is he just not there? Like he was acting like Odell Beckham Jr. being out he took people with him over to the sideline, and I think Cooper Kupp got lost there for a little bit. But clearly, I mean, he was the reason for that final drive and for them getting that win, and so deservedly, I think, named MVP of the Super Bowl. But if I'm like him and I'm watching it back and listening to that commentary, I'd be like, Collinsworth, I'm right here. I'm the MVP of the game. I'm the not every, we still have weapons. I am one of them.
Absolutely. So much to talk about regarding the Super Bowl. And by the way, if you want to jump in here, you're welcome all morning long. If you want to talk Super Bowl, we'll talk commercials. We'll talk halftime. So much to talk about. We'll also cover Olympics, NBA, everything else happening in the world of sports, including I want to get into Mike Florio on the pregame saying that NFL owners may be ready to move on Daniel Snyder of the Washington Commanders. he says he has sources saying there are owners across the NFL that think maybe it's time to force new ownership in Washington. We'll get into that story. But the phone number, if you want to join us, 800-707-9760, 800-707-9760. And of course, we're looking at your comments on the live video feed that you can access through Facebook Live via Ticket at 760 or AM 1300 The Zone, and the Twitter pages for the radio stations as well as YouTube. You can jump into the live video feed there as well. Shannon, my Facebook feed says lots and lots of people loved the halftime show. I'm seeing one comment on our live video feed. Louisa says, the halftime show sucked. Can we get real music next year? I got a feeling you liked the halftime show. Shannon, your thoughts?
My only complaint, and I think maybe some people took it the wrong way when I tweeted, watched the halftime show and was left thinking, where's the rest of it? It wasn't long enough. The catalog of all of those artists is insane, and it just wasn't enough for me. And I also like shout out to 50 for showing up and basically being a feature, because the bill, right, was Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar, and Eminem. And then halfway through that performance, we get Snoop Dogg doing In the Club, which was great. But we were used to getting like surprise guests, but when the bill already had 5 headliners and then you threw him in there, he was like the 6th man of that performance last night. I loved it. I just wanted more of it. I wanted more. I mean, Eminem only getting one song. Come on, more. I want more. Do like a full go on tour. I don't know. I'd buy a ticket to that. I don't know where the quote unquote real music thing comes from. I mean, between them, they probably have like 100 Grammys, if that's how you decide who's musical or not. Dr. Dre is legendary. I thought it was great.
Very, very cool. Yeah, a lot of people loved it. And some people are calling it the best Super Bowl halftime ever, to which I would say one word: Prince. I still stick with Prince. I even saw somebody on my Facebook feed said, move over Prince, that this was the best halftime show ever. I'm not going there, but a lot of people loved it. My God, the star power, the set I thought was amazing. It
was cool
to be able to convert that football field at halftime to that set, with multiple floors, multiple dimensions, 360, up on top of it, and then down into compartments of the sets, and just the lighting of the field underneath that set, I thought was pretty darn remarkable.
Yeah, I always love, and they're pretty easy to find, the time-lapse videos. They usually have them for every Super Bowl, where they show the in and out of the halftime show, and you just see how quickly everything really is put out there, and why those rehearsals are so important, more so for the people that are on the production side than the artists, who obviously know the words to their own song. And I know we talked about it on Friday about whether we'd see Snoop maybe taking part in some extracurriculars while performing. He didn't do it in front of everybody, but a lot of people at the Super Bowl, as you mentioned, there was like an upper level and lower level to like the set design on these rooftop houses that they were performing on with stairs underneath them. And Snoop Dogg did a lot of traveling, and there is a photo out there of him like bending over, I think, before things got underway, just taking a little something, just to get hyped up. But they all looked like they were having fun again. I thought it was enjoyable. Was it like a performance? No. Was it like Prince when Prince made the heavens rain on him while singing Purple Rain? No. But that's something only Prince can do. So, but music-wise, yeah, I enjoyed it. I got hype every time there was a transition to a different song. I was like, I know this one too. It's great. I loved it.
Jeremy, your thoughts on the Super Bowl halftime performance?
I thought it was great. I pretty much agree with everything Shannon has said, and I would also go as far as to say is that might have been the second best I've ever seen, behind Prince, and that is not Dr. Dre or anybody else's fault, because they did the best they could. Nobody else could make it rain during Purple Rain. And also, I don't know if y'all knew that, just random thing, but during Prince's set of Purple Rain, apparently, somebody on the production crew ran over like a wire, while setting up the stage, and it was severed, and that was a big issue. So one of the stagehands held the two severed wires together
Oh my
for the
God.
entire duration of the halftime performance.
Never heard that story.
Yeah, kind of random.
Very, very cool. Yeah, the Prince, that was kind of just like a perfect storm and perfect rain, and it was kind of like a once in a lifetime thing in a completely different kind of a category. But my goodness, from a star power perspective, a performance perspective, a set design, everything, that's kind of like that's the bar. Even though a lot of us will cite Prince. The bar is really raised for, my God, what are they going to do next year? How are you going to top that next year? We will talk all things Super Bowl, lots to cover from last night. What's next for all teams, including the Bengals, including the Rams. And of course, we always ask, how does this all affect the Dallas Cowboys? What are we going to do now that football season is over? You got the Olympics going on. There's some big Olympic stories we will get to. NBA Spurs have won 2 in a row and 3 out of 4, and Coach Greg Popovich now just 4 wins away, and the Spurs are 2-1 on the rodeo road trip. Can they have a winning rodeo road trip? They are in Chicago tonight. We'll get into that. As I mentioned, Coach A, Paul Alexander, going to join us just after 7 o'clock. Your chance to win $1,000 coming up at 7:20 and 8:20. Lots going on all morning till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! All right, I need coffee. Wes Perkins, welcome in. George Briscoe, welcome in. Yeah, Stevie Wonder. I think Stevie was outstanding. George. Yeah, and I am, I'm not a hip hop guy. So, for me, Stevie Wonder, The Who, Prince. So Robert Browning going Faith Hill as the best. I'm going to grab some coffee here in a moment. Where's my big coffee container? I'll be right back.
Are you ready for more freedom from the hassles of glasses and contact lenses? For a limited time, LASIK Plus is offering $1,000 off LASIK when treated in February. That's $500 off per eye. Treatment typically takes just 15 minutes, and most LASIK Plus patients are back to work the next day. So hurry, visit mylasicoffer.com now. Plus, mention this promotion to be treated in February of 2022. Qualify. $1,000 off for both eyes on standard wavelight price. $500 off for one eye. Cannot be combined with any other offer. See details at mylasicoffer.com.
There you go, Wes. I'm with you on that. Give me hologram Beatles at halftime.
Switch to State Farm for surprisingly great rates. Problem solved. For surprisingly great rates. Like your neighbors, State Farm is there. Call or visit statefarm.com for
Paul Alexander going to join us. At 7:05. Anthony Del Toro, good morning. Let's see, Robert Browning, Tracy Bogert, Luisa Alanis, Jesse Bratton, Fonzie J. Rodriguez, who is very happy. Thank you for the Tommy's ad you sent me as well, Fonzie. I love my Tommy's burgers. Haven't had one in a long time because I haven't been in LA in many years. Lucinda Sullivan, Wes Perkins, George Briscoe. Good to see you in here, George. All right. See, Tracy, you sent me a YouTube. What did you send me? I clicked on it. It is Troy Aikman. I'll have to look at that later. I saw him on Dan Patrick, but I will check that out. It's hard for me to look at videos here in this studio. It's just the way it's set up. It's really hard to do sound-wise. Jesse says halftime was entertaining, but not my cup of tea. Yeah, Luisa, 2 out of 3 and 3 out of 4 for the Spurs when you count that Houston win. So that's very, very nice. Here we go.
Just let me hear some of that rock and roll music. And
Welcome in. Day after the Super Bowl. Chris Duel show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Jeremy KOLOK is your Soundscape stylist. Paul Alexander, our go-to football guru, going to join us just after 7 o'clock. Dive further into the Super Bowl with Paul Alexander. Chance to win $1,000 at 720 and 820. It's the grand in your hand cash contest. And on that, on the 20s all day long until 6:20 tonight. Somebody wins $1,000 every single hour on the 20s, beginning at 7:20. You can join us on the live video feed via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I see on the live video feed, Sam Tobias is saying not only that my mic is echoing on the live video feed, but he is saying Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. So Shannon, Happy Valentine's Day. We go from Super Bowl Sunday to Valentine's Day Monday. The hits just keep on coming.
Yay! Such a great Hallmark holiday. Any big plans for you, Chris?
Yes. You know, my wife and I learned the hard way, both Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve. It's like, you know, you go to I used to go very early in the relationship. We'd go out to dinner on Valentine's night. It's like everything is packed. Maybe post-pandemic it's different now, or in the pandemic. But you know, restaurants jack up. So first of all, you wait longer than ever because everybody's going out to a restaurant. Secondly, the prices are jacked up. So we always
menu.
defer it. And as you know, yeah, I'm going on vacation, as you know, on Thursday. So we're gonna move Valentine's Day to the 17th for us instead of the 14th. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna stay home. But we went to HEB. Boyfriend loves to cook, so he made tons of food yesterday, and then tonight we got a giant T-bone that he's very excited to. He says he's gonna reverse sear it, so low and slow, and then on high heat out on the grill just before it's ready to eat. So I'm excited for that. I love a good steak, so steak night it is.
Very, very cool. Jeremy KOLOK, any Valentine's Day plans? Anyone you're going to proclaim your love to on this Valentine's Day?
Yeah, actually, at about 7 p.m., I'm going to proclaim my love for DeJounte Murray and the rest of the Spurs. They take on the Bulls tonight, I believe, correct? And then
well played, sir.
Once about an hour passes and we roll into about 8 p.m., I'll throw on another screen because I have another date with the Oklahoma State men's basketball team on ESPN as the Jayhawks will take the hardwood against.
Jeremy, you're such a romantic.
Yeah.
I didn't know this about you.
I know. It's a big day for me.
Now, I have not been paying attention to the Oklahoma State basketball team. How are they doing in Big 12 competition?
We don't need to talk about that. We got a couple of big wins, but other than that, we don't need to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, get back to me next year.
There you go. Just checking, just because I didn't know. I thought, man, am I missing something? Are they?
No, but we would love to beat
watch?
the Jayhawks any day.
Oh God,
week,
yes.
So yeah,
I will be happy for you if you knock off the Jayhawks. Anytime the Jayhawks lose, I'm I'm kind of happy. I've had enough of Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks, but that's just me. All right. How about something fun and positive? We like to do it at this time. It is the High Five play of the day, sponsored by High Five. See how that works? 2 locations in the Austin area. Shannon, I imagine High Five would be a cool Valentine. Even though I poo-pooed going out on Valentine's Day, I didn't think about High Five because you'd have more than just food to dive into at a High Five.
So many people make the day about a dinner and candlelight, but why not do something with your day? Why not go axe throwing together? Why not go bowling? Why not play some arcade games or a round of laser tag with your loved ones? Make sure you get out to High Five. And, if you are going to settle down and eat, it is a Monday, which means they've got their $5 specialty burger and plenty of cocktails for you to enjoy. Now, Chris, today's High Five, we'll probably get into it a little more later, but there was a lot of The Rock yesterday, just prior to the start of the Super Bowl. And one of the commercials before he randomly appeared on the field itself was about how yesterday was a golden Sunday. It was the first time ever that we've had both the Super Bowl and the Olympics taking place on the same day. Of course, both were showing on NBC, so it was huge for them to help promote the Olympics. And they should have, because there was gold won last night, not just in the mono bobsled and the females division, but also on the ice rink. Erin Jackson took gold for Team USA in the women's 500 meter speed skating. Not only does she get a high five because, hey, she got a gold medal. I mean, cheers to you. Not only does she get the high five because that was the first gold medal in that event for Team USA since 1994, but she also gets one, and we're going to go ahead and give it to Brittany Bowe as well, because Erin, although she's considered the best speed skater for the women in Team USA, she actually didn't qualify for the Olympics. She came in 3rd in the trials, and her teammate who did qualify, Brittany Bowe, bowed out of the Olympics so that Erin would get the chance to go and skate in Beijing. And Erin does just that. She makes the most of it and gets gold for her friend and for her teammates. I don't know if there's a way we can split a medal, maybe make a double for Brittany, because she deserves something here. But Team USA moving up in the medal count. I don't know that I've ever heard of sportsmanship in this way, right? I mean, an Olympic dream passed on from one teammate to another because she knew and believed in Erin's ability and knew that she would get the job done come Beijing. So congrats to Erin, and a huge high five as well to Brittany Bowe.
That is a crazy story, Shannon. I mean, and I agree with you. It is somewhat, if not completely unprecedented. I've not heard of that before. And you just think about, to have that opportunity to be an Olympian yourself, and that is such a rare life event, and then to be self-sacrificing and hand that to a teammate.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's almost, you hear about that in a movie script or something.
Well, and
it doesn't happen in real life.
And let's sprinkle some you do a good deed and good things happen to you in return. Because of I guess leading up to the Olympics, they kind of reallocated the number of places that ended up qualifying. So Bowe, even though she gave up her spot, is in Beijing. She is going to compete at some point, and so she'll still get an Olympic debut. But I mean, the gesture itself, you don't know that Erin's going to go and win gold, but she does it, and just makes the story all that much better.
And again, and to go win the gold when you would have been passed over for the Olympics, that's got to be tremendous satisfaction as well. It's like, you weren't going to let me go. I wouldn't have gone without this great gesture, but now that I'm here, let me go take the gold. That's way cool. I love it. Great call. I second that emotion on the high five play of the day. Yes. Shannon Salty Sweeney, Jeremy KOLOK, and Paul Alexander going to join the Super Bowl conversation just after the top of the hour. All right, Shannon, we've talked some Super Bowl. We'll talk more. We've talked halftime. I'm sure we'll revisit it. We have yet to talk Super Bowl commercials before we talk about some specifics. Just overall, I'm granted the Super Bowl is known for commercials. It's part of the deal. keeps me very conflicted when I have to go to the bathroom because I don't want to miss anything. Your thoughts about the Super Bowl commercial quality last night?
Honestly, there were very few that I think stood out to me. I think we've had better years as far as commercials. I felt like we're also getting a lot of repeats and things that I had already seen. So I wasn't as entertained. I felt fine being like, hey, I'm gonna go get another beverage, or this is a good time to use the bathroom. Because I just wasn't feeling them the way I had before. I mean, what about you?
I Similar, and again, there have been so many great Super Bowl commercials over the years. It's almost like, we talked about this with the halftime show. The bar has been raised so high, it's hard to, it's hard to come up with something. The Larry David halftime show, when there were all these great ideas, and he was
that one was pretty good.
all these great ideas. That was for a cryptocurrency company called FTX, where ultimately, he says, cryptocurrency, not for me. I thought that was very, very funny. One of the weirdest moments, did you see the bouncing QR code?
Yeah, also for crypto.
You're sticking around throughout that. Yeah. And again, though, and I must admit, that was innovative and unusual. But I said, nope, not going to do it. Not going to get up and go to my TV and find out where that QR code is going to take me. Apparently, and you're right, it was for Coinbase, was the company for cryptocurrency, and apparently it crashed the site for a while. So I mean,
I got in.
You do that during a Super Bowl, yeah, it's going to happen. So Jeremy, anything commercial wise that stood out for you that you either loved or hated?
No, it feels like the commercials aren't hitting the same as they used to. But maybe we just have too high expectations. But for maybe it was cheesy, but I just like the local HEB commercial with George Strait in the rocket ship, and he orders like a bunch of chips and stuff for their road trip or whatever. I thought that was fun. That was the one that stuck out.
Fun.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
And once again, and go ahead, Shannon.
I think we have like celebrity fatigue on commercials. Like we know we're expecting these great commercials because they're spending so much money just for this spot. But I think for whatever reason, every company is like, but put a celebrity in it. That'll make it stand out. And every now and then you get one that's like, oh, okay. But a lot of them you're like, do we need to have this person in it?
Yeah, well, and speaking of celebrities, I did like there was a commercial for the Toyota Tundra with Tommy Lee Jones, Rashida Jones, and Leslie Jones. The whole idea was keeping up with the Joneses, and underneath it, Tom Jones was singing "It's Not Unusual," and then Nick Jonas crashes the party, and that was kind of fun, kind of enjoyable. That one I thought was a fun one. So there was did you see there was an NFL kind of an animated commercial for an NFL video game with Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis? That was weird, but certainly got my attention because I was recognizing Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis.
Yeah, I'm watching that. I'm like, what is this for? And it was just an NFL commercial. And a lot of it was guys that aren't in the NFL anymore. So I was confused.
True.
Much confusion.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the NFL, right before the game, I thought it was kind of cool. Halle Berry did that thing which combined, football movies with actual Super Bowls, kind of, interspersing both of those. I thought that was kind of cool. Just before the Super Bowl. There
was a lot of just before the Super Bowl, Chris. I mean, I almost dare to say too much. I'm like, start the game.
Well, no, you brought up The Rock. Yes, The Rock coming onto the field, yelling about the Super Bowl, and multiple times I thought, okay, that's it. He's announcing it's the Super Bowl. That was I don't know if I liked that or not, but that was an interesting choice.
Well, because we had just watched him do like the pre-taped "It's the Golden Sunday" on NBC, the Super Bowl and the Olympics, and then you cut to and we're ready for the game, and then there he is on the field. It's almost like someone saw him on the sideline. They're like, production isn't ready yet. We need to hold this over for another 2.5 minutes. Get out there. Just say stuff. Just be The Rock. Just people love you. But I think, yeah, I don't just get to the game. I'm like, how many songs? We had a full concert before. We had all the songs. We had all the performances. Did all of the stuff. Walter Payton Man of the Year. We did everything. You know, Russell was there, gave his little
Yeah.
speech. I'm like, I was like, it's 5:36. Start the game. It's supposed to be on at 5:30. I'm ready to go.
Well, and the actual pregame started at noon.
Oh yeah.
So
I was like,
5:30
what are we doing?
game start supposedly, and so I mean, and on one level, it's like I liked it. It's like because it's Super Bowl Sunday, so I'm
What else am I doing?
multitasking. I'm doing things around the house, but I got it on. But I mean, I mean, so much filler and just ridiculousness. And again, they had 5 hours to fill, so I kind of get it.
The two of my favorite fillers from that because I watched it all too. One, they had the I believe it's the La Liga, the Mexican broadcaster, football broadcaster. He does the long goal thing, right? Goal. And Mike Tirico had him do that, like recalling an Evan McPherson field goal, and they just did that for a couple minutes. That was fun. And then the other, like the nerd who explained Super Bowl squares on national television, and then like started to break down like the odds and everything of these are the ones that if you can get them. That was like, but we really are just like buying time here.
Yeah, I have noticed like Football Night in America, Steve Kornacki is the election night statistical nerd on MSNBC and on NBC. And yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And it was kind of funny as well. I think he said, if you get the 2 and the 5, he said statistically, if you get the 2 and the 5 on your squares, you're totally screwed. And apparently Chris Sims, they showed Chris Sims.
Which of course
had that. And right. Which was perfect. So yeah, absolutely. All right. So now Shannon, and we'll talk about the Super Bowl coming up with Paul Alexander here in a few minutes, just after 7:00. So now what, Shannon? What do we get into now? Do we get into the Olympics? Do we get into, is it NCAA basketball time? Do we get into the NBA now? Do we start paying attention more? Do we get into Coach Pop's quest for 4 more wins? This is always, it's like the joy of Super Bowl Sunday. And then the day after, I always go, now I realize football season's over.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough time for me.
I think all of that, but luckily because of the drama that always seems to be unfolding with the NFL, no matter what time of year, it always gives the Chris Duel Show an opportunity to talk football. So it's always football season here. We'll find a way. I guarantee it.
That's true. Not just because of the USFL either. And part of that drama is going to involve Daniel Snyder and the Washington football team. Mike Florio reporting on the pregame show yesterday that a number of NFL owners are really ready to move on and force Daniel Snyder out as owner of the Washington Commanders if the latest investigation goes south on him. Coming up, Coach A, Paul Alexander, our go-to football guru, his thoughts on all things Super Bowl next. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, Jeremy KOLOK making the show go. Till 9, it's the Chris Duel Show. Luisa Alanis. I've been into the Olympics all week. Go USA. Yeah, I guess it's time now for me to get into the Olympics. Now that we're over with the Super Bowl. Sam Tobias, all praise Gregory Charles Popovich. 4 wins away. I do have my, I'll have to go get it. It's on my desk. My Gregory Charles Popovich prayer candle. Anthony Del Toro with a bah humbug on Valentine's Day. That is kind of interesting, Chris Gonzalez. We'll have to talk about that. Apparently now, if you score a touchdown and kick the extra point, the other team still gets the ball. But if you go for 2, you could then close the game out. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey, I always enjoy him in commercials, Luis. I'm with you on that. Yeah, Anthony talking about Odell Beckham Jr., very emotional after the game. Good morning, John Williams. Yeah, Derek White as a Celtic. It is weird. I still think that the Spurs, as much as I like Derek White, I think the Spurs will be well served by that trade with all those draft picks now. 3 in the first round. Gives them a lot of options, including packaging them and moving up to get anybody they want, pretty much. Beth Settle. Good morning, Beth Settle. Good to see you. You're up early. Happy Valentine's Day. All right, I am going to heat up some coffee because I need it. I need it so bad. I need caffeine. I was up an hour earlier this morning, and I will be tomorrow. Thank you, Tim Merriman, for WOAI's morning news, because Tim Merriman's taking the mornings off. And he took this morning off specifically so that he could watch the Super Bowl without any concern about waking up early. Thank you, Tim. Woo! John Williams, good morning. Beth Settle, Luisa Alanis, Anthony Del Toro, Chris Gonzalez, Sam Tobias, Wes Perkins, Jesse Bratton, Robert Browning from Tokyo. Not from Tokyo. You're not in Tokyo specifically, or are you, Robert? Lucinda Sullivan, Tracy Bogert. Sam Tobias says Derek White said he was not surprised but shocked to learn that he was traded from the Spurs to the Boston Celtics. Yeah. Very good guy. We all like Derek White. I hope it goes well for him there. I do believe Jeremy's getting ready to call Paul Alexander. Let me find my Paul Alexander photo so that you may see him as you hear him. There he is. He's good. Here we go. Paul Alexander on the phone line.
Chris Duel.
It is the day after the Super Bowl. It's also Valentine's Day, in case you forgot. You better get out and get a card or get some chocolates or do whatever you need to do to proclaim your love to the person or the people you love. If you're involved in multiple relationships, you could do that as well. I've seen some movies about that. Day after the Super Bowl, we are reacting to everything Super Bowl. What we saw on the field, what we saw off the field, the halftime, the commercials, what it means compared to what was expected. And we could not talk Super Bowl without talking to this show's very own football guru and go-to guy on all things football, and the man, the editor-in-chief of the fabulous website, radicallyrational.com, where he not only covers sports, but covers all things culture and life with a flair and an attitude and insight that you don't find anywhere else. And he's going to be sitting in this chair beginning this Thursday and Friday this week and on into next week. The one and only Coach A, Paul Alexander. How are you doing on this morning?
Chris, pretty well, with the exception of the fact that T. Higgins just grabbed my face mask and just about tore my head off. So my neck is sore, but otherwise I'm fine.
Well, and Paul, congratulations. Shannon picked Bengals. I picked Bengals. Jeremy picked Bengals. A lot of people, I think, were picking with their hearts and picked Bengals. You said Rams. Your score was 38-34, but you had Rams by 4, and the Rams won by 3. So, and you, I saw on Radically Rational, I saw your video and you said, I'm not going to bury the lead right at the get-go. You said Rams are going to win this game. You were confident the Rams would win. Anything surprise you about what you saw yesterday?
Well, what was amazing to me, and this shouldn't be surprising, is that ultimately the Rams not only won, the Rams won by being the Rams and doing what they do. And early in that game, the Bengals had largely taken that away. You know, the storyline going in was that, you know, the Bengals are not going to be able to protect Burrow, and this pass rush is just going to eat them up. And, of course, ultimately that was the case. But in the first half, actually, the Bengals did a sensational job of protecting Burrow. And the Rams could not run the ball a lick. I mean, if you told me that they'd finish that game with 43 rushing yards, I would have liked the Bengals' chances pretty much. And Cincinnati had so many chances to put that game away. And, Chris, ultimately, this was my impression, and I felt this way while I was watching that last drive. You know, we're old-time Cowboy fans, going all the way back to when they first became prominent and made the playoffs. You know, the 66 team that lost the NFL championship game to the Packers, the 67 team that did it again in the Ice Bowl. I'm watching that, and I'm thinking it's just not Cincinnati's time yet. They've had multiple chances to put this game away. They played really well. They played really valiantly. But you have a veteran team in the Rams that really was built for this moment, and I thought it was totally inevitable. And to harken back to another Super Bowl memory, the last time the Bengals were in the Super Bowl, it was Super Bowl 23, and it was that game against Joe Montana and the 49ers. And that was the John Candy game where Joe Montana looks up in the stands and says, "Look, there's John Candy," and everybody starts laughing while they take the ball down the field to win the Super Bowl. And finally, he hits that skinny post to John Taylor to win it. That drive yesterday reminded me of that. You know, we all talk about the drive, you know, by the Denver Broncos back in 1986. I thought that drive yesterday was unbelievable because you knew what was going to happen. And the Rams' options were so limited. Odell Beckham Jr. is out of the game after being a huge factor in the first half. The Rams don't have their regular tight end. They can't run the ball a lick. They can't get it back to the line of scrimmage. There's only one guy out there that can beat you, and there are 80,000 people at that incredible palace that know it, and still they couldn't do anything about it. And even with Kupp, they wound up winning, having Kupp do things he normally doesn't do. They run that jet sweep that they ran on fourth down, but they don't run it with Kupp, and he got it done to keep that alive. And they run the fade a lot, but that's not what they do with Cooper Kupp. He does other stuff. So they not only beat him with one hand tied behind their back, even the other hand is doing stuff that hand doesn't normally do. And Stafford was just absolutely nails. And this is kind of when I thought that it was going to get away from the Bengals. As good as Stafford was yesterday, he went through a stretch where he was really shaky. And the Bengals had every chance to exploit that and really kind of put it away. And when they didn't do that, I kind of thought I knew what was going to happen. I was very, very disappointed that we didn't get an OT because, you know, we got Evan McPherson or El McPherson because they're both beautiful, right? And you just kind of assumed that he was going to get that opportunity. And then the Bengals, they actually did some things yesterday I thought were inexplicable. On that last possession, they got a 3rd and 1 to keep this alive, and you give the ball to Pirine? You got Joe Mixon on your roster. And I thought, as good as Mixon was yesterday, I thought he was underutilized. That was surprising. And then people are going to call me a codger now. I guess, Paul, you calm down. I thought Zach Taylor put his team in a really bad position from the jump. And it was just a continuation of this 2021-22 insanity with coaches at all levels, just inexplicably going forward on fourth down. And I'm talking about that possession early in the game. It's still early in the first quarter. They got the ball on a 4th and 1 at about midfield. They decide to go for it. I just thought it didn't make any sense at all. Your defense was playing great. They'd already had a wonderful possession where they were just snuffing everything. You can drop that punt down inside the 10-yard line and, frankly, wait for Matthew Stafford to throw you a pick. But instead, you've got this go for it mentality. And again, this is just a rational thing with me. The potential downside there exceeded the potential upside. If you get it, I mean, in a sense, so dang what? You've guaranteed yourself nothing. We're going to be out here for 4 hours, okay? But if you give them a short field, you know what happens?
Mm-hmm.
They get OBJ lined up and manned up in man coverage, and they throw him a touchdown pass. And I'm sorry, Taylor, that's on you.
Coach A, one of the questions I asked you on Friday was about these two quarterbacks, Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford. Joe Burrow shows up to the Super Bowl in a Bengals-like striped black suit and hat, which got all the rage, whereas Matthew Stafford just in a simple black T-shirt. They are two different cats. But wanted to know on Friday, who needed this more as far as their career and what that might mean. And you said it was Matthew Stafford. So now that he does have that ring, he didn't get MVP, but he does get that ring. What does this mean for his career? And does he now get into that conversation of maybe being a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. It means everything. He's been such a good quarterback for such a long time. You could call him the franchise quarterback without a franchise with all those years in Detroit. And let's not forget that he put together 4 consecutive really solid games in the playoffs. On the other hand, people's lives and careers hinge on something like this. He may actually have thrown what should have been the game-ending interception in the NFC Championship game, and you got a 49ers safety that just gut drops it. But you know what? For you to have a legacy like that and a reputation like that, good things like that have to happen to you. And again, I thought he was absolutely nails yesterday. Both quarterbacks had to shake off really painful injuries. I think they're both just excellent leaders. And Stafford made some throws. My goodness. On that last drive, I think Kupp had 4 catches for 39 yards. One of them in particular on this diagonal crossing route where he threw it into this little tiny window. It was just remarkable. I think it was a great football game. It clearly capped off the greatest postseason in NFL history. It just reminded us of how good the game is. And that was the greatest season a receiver ever posted. And yes, I'm aware of the fact that Jerry Rice lived.
And I want to underscore what you just said. And it's so true. That was the greatest postseason in NFL history. Absolutely. Game after game after game, down to the wire, including the Super Bowl. We're talking Super Bowl with Coach A, Paul Alexander from radicallyrational.com. You said earlier, Paul, that it came down to it. This was just not Cincinnati's time. While I think a lot of people look at Joe Burrow and they go, oh, he'll be back. I always think back to Dan Marino as a rookie against the San Francisco 49ers, getting blown out, and so many people, and I believed it, but so many people said, oh man, this Marino kid, he's so good. He'll be back in a bunch of Super Bowls and he'll get his Super Bowl rings. And as we know, he never did. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they're in a conference that has Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, a conference that may get Aaron Rodgers before it's all said and done. What is your confidence level, Paul, including the Bengals, until now not known as an organization that is good at, and God love them, to come from 2-14 2 years ago to a Super Bowl? What's your confidence level that Joe Burrow and the Bengals get back to the Super Bowl anytime soon?
Well, certainly they're going to be in the mix, but you mentioned all those quarterbacks, and we left out Justin Herbert, who may be the dangest thing I've ever seen, potentially. So, I like the Bengals' chances. I like the way they built their team. We have this kind of stereotype that the Rams built everything through free agency and the Bengals, built everything through the draft. That's really not true when you look at the Bengals defense. And by the way, I thought for the most part, the Bengals defense was just magnificent yesterday for a long time. And I think that's been true throughout the playoffs. I mean, certainly it was true in the second half against the Chiefs. So they'll have a chance to get back. And I do think that Burrow is really a generational talent and a generational leader for sure. But Chris, you referenced Dan Marino a minute ago. I actually was at that Super Bowl in San Francisco when the 49ers beat up on them. And I was working there, and I was in the Dolphins locker room after that game, and Shula was crushed. I mean, Shula was about to throw up. Marino, he was disappointed, obviously, but he wasn't devastated. And the reason he wasn't devastated is he figured, I'll come back here another 7-8 times. And it just never happened. So that just underscores your point that you can never take that for granted.
We're going to hit it a little early here on a Monday. We are still giving away $1,000 every hour on both Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone. We've got your keyword for you right here. Just listen, take it over to either station's website and enter it for a chance to get $1,000 in your hand. Here it is now, 7 o'clock hour keyword.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website, bank. That's bank. Enter it on our station website now.
All right, Coach A, Chris and I were talking about this a little bit before we had you on. The Super Bowl, basically an American holiday. Nearly everyone tunes in, whether they watch the regular season or not. The game kicked off around 5:30 yesterday, but if you turned on your TV at all yesterday, you could watch coverage nearly all day. And I believe Chris and I both took part in that. Was wondering about your thoughts on the coverage, because there were times where I was like, this feels like we're just really kind of reaching here, and maybe they should turn on something else.
You know what? Sometimes I feel that way. And historically, I've been one of those guys that just can't take it to watch the pregame show all day long. And I don't know what it is. Maybe there's special circumstances this year. Maybe I'm just clinging to it more than I ever have before. But I did pretty well hang with it for the duration yesterday. Now, I shifted back and forth, between NBC and the NFL Network and things like that. But I agree with you. It can get exhausting. You know, they had that golf tournament going on in Phoenix. And I don't know if you saw any of the third round on Saturday, but it's a totally different deal. I mean, it's a party. It's an out of control party that's really kind of fun to watch. And I don't know, maybe about 3:00 yesterday afternoon, I thought about shifting over there for just a few minutes just to see what was going on. And I went, no, I can't do it. I mean, this is the last football game of the year. I got to see this, but it really can become exhausting. But the thing was, nobody does showbiz better than the NFL. I'm not necessarily a futuristic guy, but that stadium is just bad to the bone. I mean, it's just bad to the bone. And all of the production by the NFL and everything they did, I thought was pretty well pitch perfect, which is a good thing because this is going to be a very uncomfortable offseason.
Oh, well, and we can certainly get into that. He's Coach A, Paul Alexander from RadicallyRational.com. And you talk about SoFi Stadium, Paul, and obviously Stan Kroenke, the Rams owner, not only builds that incredible stadium, but green lights. You mentioned Rams free agency, and certainly Matthew Stafford, Von Miller, Odell Beckham Jr. It seemed as though the Rams said, we will do whatever is necessary to win a Super Bowl. And we've heard Jerry Jones say that, Paul. After all of these years since Super Bowl 30, and the Cowboys haven't sniffed a conference championship or a Super Bowl since 1996. And I keep thinking, is Jerry Jones going to learn from other teams, both from a player personnel standpoint and from just a running a team standpoint? Your thoughts on the way the Rams were built, on their willing themselves and trading themselves and spending themselves to a Super Bowl. And as you comment on that, your thoughts on the prospects of the Dallas Cowboys, because I can't talk football with you without at least getting a Cowboys take.
My fear, in fact, my certainty, is that this is just going to feed Jerry Jones' feeding frenzy. What we saw yesterday, with the Rams is the absolute exception and not the rule. There have been teams before that have gone, quote unquote, all in, and they've gone bust. I mean, what the Rams pulled off yesterday really was unprecedented in that sense. To bring in big name free agents during the season and make that all come together, And there's a guy yesterday that I haven't mentioned yet that I just can't give enough credit to. Sean McVay was as good as he's cracked up to be yesterday. And I'm so impressed. I mean, he really got humiliated 3 years ago. I mean, the hoodie just took it to him. But you know what? He put his head down. He went to work. He stayed humble. He admitted his mistakes. He learned what he needed to learn. And, you know, he's got this reputation, deservedly, as a great play designer and a great play caller. Man, have you ever seen a better example of that under more important conditions than what he did on that last drive with what he had to work with? Amazing.
Coach A, a bit of a generational divide when it came to the halftime performance of this year's Super Bowl. So I was curious as to what you thought and where you might rank it amongst others.
See, I saw Prince, so we don't really need to continue this conversation any longer. Yes, I saw Prince. Look, here was the thing. Make people happy, but determine what makes people happy. And the only thing I'll say, I'm going to have a good time anyway, because I love the Super Bowl. I love the environment yesterday. It was great. You know, I had 3 different kinds of dip and queso, so life was really good. The only thing that did make me a little uncomfortable, because there's no other word for it, the shakedown that hip-hop artists kind of proclaimed late in the week, I thought that was a little heavy-handed.
Coach A, Paul Alexander of RadicallyRational.com. Paul, we talked about Cincinnati and Joe Burrow and can they come back? I do want to get your thoughts. You know, this Rams team was built for the Super Bowl. Obviously, you know, when you win a Super Bowl, the talk then becomes, can you turn around and do it next year? As we look at the NFC next year, Tampa Bay, obviously, without Brady, they're not going to be the same. Green Bay, will Aaron Rodgers be there or won't he? Might he retire? You've got the San Francisco 49ers out there who seem to be changing a quarterback. And then, of course, our beloved Dallas Cowboys. What do you think the odds are the Rams can just run it right back and do this again next year?
I think those odds are never good. You know, and particularly under these circumstances, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I'm wishing the best, actually, for OBJ. Yeah, I think it's great the way he got himself back together, et cetera. I hope that knee injury is not too serious. The Rams obviously are going to be a good team, but they're not flawless. I mean, we saw that yesterday. So much of their normal offense is based on being able to run the ball and stay in front of the chains and play action off of that. And, you know, you got Cam Akers, who I'm looking at the stat sheet. I think he averaged like 1 yard a carry. So they've got some flaws. And their biggest problem is, yeah, they got away with it against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. But for the most part, they can't beat the 49ers to save their lives. Now, I don't know what's going to go on in San Francisco with Trey Lance, because clearly they're throwing the keys to him. And I just don't know. I do know that the 49ers play a style with a nastiness that is really hard for teams to handle.
Coach A, Paul Alexander, great news for our listeners. Beginning this Thursday, Paul will join Shannon Thursday and Friday and on into next week. I'm going to take a little NBA All-Star break vacation. So we always love more, just like more football is good football, more Paul Alexander is great Paul Alexander. So Paul, thank you in advance for being in here beginning Thursday. And if you don't want to wait until Thursday, there's always more Paul Alexander at RadicallyRational.com. For people new to RadicallyRational.com, Paul, what will people find there?
Well, you know, it's our motto. We're bringing facts back into fashion. We're making simple sanity sexy again, and crazy is not cool. And it sounds ridiculous that we have to say that, but we find ourselves in a situation where we have to say that. So we want to have some fun, and we want to lampoon a lot of this stuff. We don't ever want to take ourselves seriously. But if we're going to go back to quote-unquote normal lives and enjoying our lives and being a united country, the first thing we're going to have to do is hitch our wagon back to facts and truth. And this idea that people could just make up any damn thing they want to, that is why we are where we are.
Amen to that. Facts and truth. What a concept. Coach A, Paul Alexander of radicallyrational.com, in here in this studio beginning on Thursday. Paul, always spectacular, sir. Thanks for taking the time. Have a great week.
I want to thank all of you so much. I've enjoyed this. You have helped me. This has been so therapeutic for me. This is a tough day of the year for me every single year, but I've enjoyed the conversation, and I can't wait to be in there Thursday. Thanks again.
Thank you, Paul. We look forward to it as well. Coming up, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. We are talking everything Super Bowl, the game itself, the halftime show, the commercials. Oh, and there's some other things going on in sports. Olympics, NBA, college hoops. We'll get into all of that as well. Don't go anywhere. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Jeremy going with a little Prince out of the gate there with the bumper music, 1999. One of my favorite albums ever. The whole album is just so darn good. Let me, there's Paul. All right. Let me do my coffee check. James Rippey says this year's halftime show is the new number 1. Paul McCartney is number 39. Second, Prince's performance is third. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Paul McCartney is number 2 and Prince is number 3. A lot of people saying that, James. I still got to go with Prince. And granted, and I'm not a hip hop guy, so I obviously wasn't the demo. So, but just looking at my Facebook feed, lots and lots and lots of people loved that halftime show. Going to be hard to, I don't know what they're going to do next year. They'll figure something out, but I don't know what it's going to be. All right. I hold in my hand the last cup of coffee. Well, look at that, man. Sam Tobias. This year's halftime show is number 1 and Prince is number 2. Blasphemy. Blasphemy, Sam Tobias. I know you're not alone, though. There are people who agree with you. I say blasphemy, but that's just me.
Audible makes it easy to do you. Take time out to lose yourself in a sci-fi epic, best-selling thriller, or celebrity memoir, or dive into an exclusive you can't hear anywhere else. Whatever you're into, you can find the best of it on Audible with originals, audiobooks, and podcasts. There's wellness, true crime, motivation, and powerful new voices to discover. With so many included titles to enjoy, there's always something great to listen to with Audible. Sign up for your free 30-day trial today at audible.com.
Jason Paniagua saying the next Super Bowl is in Arizona, so Alice Cooper at halftime. That would be kind of cool. I think they'd have to, and I really think they stumbled on something here with so many incredible acts. If they ever do go old school rock like an Alice Cooper, maybe, package a lot of acts back to back to back to back. So, John Williams, you say today in sports history, in 1951, Sugar Ray Robinson defeated. Go ahead, do this. Sugar Ray Robinson defeated Jake LaMotta for the heavyweight title. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was on this day in sports history, except for that. Thank you, John Williams. Dean Stone, nobody predicted it correctly. However, before the Rams went on that 15-play, 75-yard drive, it was 20-16 Bengals with time running out, and Shannon had 20-17 Bengals. Shannon darn near nailed it if the Bengals could have stopped the Rams. And I was certainly hoping for that on that final Rams drive because I was pulling for the Bengals. But it did not happen, sadly. Here we go.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter @ChrisDuel and @ShannonB. Sweeney.
Welcome in. Happy Valentine's Day as we talk all things Super Bowl. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. You are welcome to join us all morning long and talk Super Bowl and other things going on. Big Olympics events going on, big Olympic results, NBA, college hoops, big golf tournament over the weekend, and more. Phone number, if you want to join us on the phone lines, 800-707-9760. There is the live video feed. You're not only interacting with us live and in real time, but other sports fans across Texas and around the world join us on the live video feed. You can get there via Facebook, either Ticket 760 or AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook page, Twitter page, a YouTube way into the live video feed as well. In a moment, Shannon's Salty Shakedown for a Valentine's Day, the day after the Super Bowl. But first, sports birthdays. And this day in sports history. Valentine's Day, 1951, kind of a big one. Sugar Ray Robinson versus Jake LaMotta. Two amazing boxers go at it, and Sugar Ray Robinson defeats Jake LaMotta for the middleweight boxing title. On this day in 1957, the Georgia Senate unanimously approves Senator Leon Butt's bill barring black players from playing the game of baseball with white players. Blows my mind. That happened in 1957. A pox on you. Georgia State Senate unanimously voted for that. My God. This day in 1966, Wilt Chamberlain breaks the NBA scoring record at 20,884 points. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would someday say, hold my beer. On this day in 1971, it was the 13th Daytona 500, and it is won by Richard Petty, who goes on to win the inaugural Winston Cup title that year. And finally, this day in 2019, Oklahoma City Thunder guard Russell Westbrook makes a triple-double. He had 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists in an NBA record 11th consecutive games. 11 straight triple-doubles. They still lost. The Thunder lost to New Orleans, 131-122. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1913, legendary College Football Hall of Fame coach with Ohio State, Woody Hayes, won national championships in 1954, 57, 61, 68, and 70. And he once punched an opposing player who intercepted a ball and then ran out of bounds on the Ohio State sideline. Woody Hayes died in 1987. Born on this day in 1951, American ice skater JoJo Starbuck. Born in Birmingham, Alabama, JoJo Starbuck would marry Terry Bradshaw for a while. Born on this day in 1960, Buffalo Bills quarterback Jim Kelly led them to 4 Super Bowls and did not win one, 4 consecutive. Jim Kelly was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Born on this day in 1972 in Ellensburg, Washington, NFL quarterback with the Patriots and the Cowboys, Drew Bledsoe. And we all know what happened. Drew Bledsoe gave way to some guy named Tom Brady. Finally, born on this day in 1973, NFL quarterback with the Houston Oilers and later the Tennessee Titans, Steve McNair. Steve McNair was murdered by his mistress in 2009. That was kind of ugly. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, pole assassins, monkeys, and Valentines, here is your Valentine's Day salty shakedown.
All right, Chris, let's go over to Beijing really quickly. We discussed last week, the issue that was taking place that was really disrupting the ice skating competition. A 15-year-old Russian who skates for the IOC or whatever. They somehow allow Russians to still compete, even though 2014 and all of the drug scandal that came out. There's still Russians there competing. And this 15-year-old Kamila Valieva, well, she tested positive for a drug, but she was 15, right? So they had to really look at this because she could claim she didn't know what was going on. So then we have to decide, okay, does she even need the medication, or was this something that they used to help energize her and get her to perform better? She's the favorite for their country. She's the favorite to win in the women's competition. Their team, Russia, or whatever they want to be called these days, they did in fact get the gold medal for the team event. So they paused that medal ceremony. That medal ceremony will not take place. But she has been cleared as of today to compete in the women's event. However, if she does medal, gold, silver, or bronze. She is expected to actually take the gold, and her teammates, also from Russia, are expected to take the other 2 medals as well. They will not hold a medal ceremony because the case is still open, and at the end of the day, they could take it all back. Your thoughts on the ruling and saying go ahead and compete? I feel bad if an American or anybody else from around the world ends up medaling, but so does Camila, and therefore there's no ceremony because they're still dealing with this. I mean, if Russia is banned from the games, be banned from the games, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and as we discussed last week, Shannon, I think it should have been in place, but the Olympics should learn from this that each athlete, you need a rule where each athlete has to declare what drugs I'm taking in case any of those drugs are illegal, so that if something shows up in an athlete's system, it's like, okay, we can look at your pre-Olympic declaration of what drugs you are taking so that you knew in advance what was and what wasn't illegal. And if something's illegal, then the Olympics need to say, sorry, can't do that. So my point is, Shannon, we shouldn't even be here after, decades and generations of Olympic competitions. The governing body should have known, and this athlete should have known, and Russia should have known whether or not this drug was going to be accepted. And so it's a weird situation, but you're right. What about an athlete who comes in fourth here that might otherwise have medaled and again, we don't even know if this medal will qualify or be accepted somewhere down the line based on another ruling. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's certainly unfortunate for the other athletes who are also having to deal with this as well. Moving on, Chris, the PGA Tour is in full swing. Our iHeart Austin studios just across the highway from the site of the Dell Match Play at Austin Country Club. They are getting those grandstands set up as we speak. That'll take place next month. But this week, the PGA Tour was at Phoenix Open, and it did not come without its excitement. I know golf is perceived as a stuffy event. It is an event of no fun, Chris. I mean, a lot of people don't want to go because they just think it's boring. But I think those ways are changing perception-wise, especially after what we saw at the Phoenix Open. One day, Mr. Sam Ryder was on hole 16, and he aced it. He aced the hole. I believe it was actually the first time since Tiger Woods did it about 25 years ago. But beers went flying. You would have thought you were at a soccer match when goals are scored and people raise their cups and cheer, and beer itself flies. But cans and cups were flying onto the course as well. It took a very long time to clear. It was a literary mess. And there were plenty of old stuffy PGA watchers and goers who were not pleased. This is not golf. This is not how we do things. This is not how we operate. And then there was a lot of people with the argument of, look at all this attention the sport is getting, and it's creating the perception that, hey, people have fun here and people are celebrated when they do good things. It's not all soft, quiet golf claps. Well, fast forward a day, and another golfer, Carlos Ortiz, goes on 16 and does the exact same thing. So once again, beer goes flying, cans go to the ground. Now we have this conversation about, obviously you don't want the field of play to be disrupted. And then they had to pause in the action. And I'm sure holes were backed up because they had to clear everything. So that part, maybe not so great. But you got to give credit to the fans for being so excited and having that much fun at, again, a sport that for a long time was just seen for grumpy old men.
I kind of like it. I not just kind of, Shannon. I do like it. I like it a lot. It's going to be a great question for Andy Everett, our resident golf guru. Is he cool with it? I think, yeah. If the fans want to throw beer and and again, what are the odds? Two guys ace a hole, Sam Ryder and Carlos Ortiz at the Phoenix Open. But new tradition, and maybe the fans create more celebrations at these golf tournaments and more fun things to do when a certain thing happens. Why not make it more exciting? And I think if you think about it, it's only going to attract more fans to golf. It's going to create more buzz. We live in the social media universe now, so it's going to attract more people to golf ultimately. So yeah, if fans are having fun and demonstrating They're having fun. I'm all for it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I love that level of excitement coming to golf. And by the way, Scotty Scheffler, former Longhorn, ended up winning that event. It was his first win on the PGA Tour, so he's going to look to have a great season. Finally, we are the day after the Super Bowl, and as we all know, the winners of the Super Bowl immediately, they've got the hats, they've got the T-shirts, they're putting them on, they've got them on while they're getting that Lombardi Trophy and passing it around. And we've had a conversation similar to this before, Chris, about, okay, well, how quickly are these printed? What happens to the shirts and the merch from the losing team, right? Because a lot of that stuff is already printed. Maybe not for the fans, but for the team itself, especially in a game like yesterday where it really did come down to the final minutes with it being such a close score. Well, we've got a little bit more information on that. It is a company called Good 360 in Virginia. They've been partners with the NFL for Super Bowl games, AFC Championships, NFC Championships, as well as World Series since 2015. And what they do for any retailers or box store sellers that have these items that are already printed and ready to go, because a lot of people get underway the second they know that their team is heading to a championship. They go ahead and print stuff. In fact, prior to the Super Bowl, Bengals merch was outselling Rams merch 4-1. But a lot of that stuff does end up they're trying not to make it go to waste, because a lot of it ultimately doesn't get used because only one team comes out on top. So this company, Good 360, they have a shipping container that they wait to fill. So I guess maybe one NFC championship game isn't enough. They've got to wait for a couple of other events. But when that container is filled, they then ship it across over the oceans to Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and South America to help clothe those that do need clothing, which is great. But what I think is kind of crazy incredible about this is that the shipping container, no one knows where it is. It is a secret because they do not want people breaking into it to then get this merch that seemingly no one else would have because it's not legit, right? And selling it online. If you were to look on eBay prior to the Super Bowl, there was a shirt going for $10,000, which was a false previous Bengals Super Bowl appearance shirt. That obviously did not come to fruition. So these shirts end up making a lot of people a lot of money, but I think it's great that they're able to take all of this stuff and provide it to those who need it rather than just, I don't know, just bleaching them all and starting over or just straight up throwing them away. But I'm afraid now that some of this is leaking out, who the company is, that they do this whole container thing. What if somebody finds it? I mean, that treasure hunt.
Yeah.
Treasure hunt for a container. But there it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Outstanding Salty Shakedown, as always, a Valentine's Day edition. But I think now, Shannon, you mentioned, a vintage Bengals Super Bowl champion T-shirt from, the 80s selling for all that money. If there becomes a market for these, T-shirts that weren't because the other team won the Super Bowl, and they wind up going to third world countries to clothe people. And I love that. And I've always thought that was a great move. But if people, I won't be surprised if even after they're distributed to people who can use this clothing, if somebody doesn't then start going to Africa or going to the Middle East or going to wherever, people have these T-shirts and finding them and then acquiring them, bringing them back to the States or putting them online and trying to make money off of them. This could be a whole new weird thing. And if it is, I would only hope that when you acquire these shirts that you at least pay, the people who are wearing them in these other countries who could certainly use the money in addition to use the clothing. That's just a weird, kind of a weird circumstance that it's turning into kind of a money-making thing somehow.
Well, and what a weird collection item, right? Because obviously we talk a lot about collectors and things that prices and sports memorabilia go for. But that just being a shirt that should have never been made and having a wrong score on it, having a wrong champion, whatever it may be, like that is a weird collection for me to have. As weird as some other things are to collect, I don't know why someone would spend all of that money on something that people would walk in there and be like, well, that's a lie. That's not even real. Like, yes, it's a shirt. It's physically there, but what's the point of that?
It's a great point. But as we know, people collect the weirdest stuff. So I'm sure there's somebody out there who actively wants to pursue that and wants to find those things. Another little, so many things to react to from yesterday and last night's Super Bowl, Shannon. As we know, the Rams lost the coin toss, and that now 8 times in a row, the winner of the coin toss has now lost the Super Bowl. You know, a coin toss is a 50-50 proposition typically. Now 8 in a row, you win the coin toss, you lose the Super Bowl. We are now at 8 consecutive on that, which is crazy.
That is pretty wild. That is very wild. And take that into consideration next year when placing bets.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. We will talk more, all things Super Bowl, the game itself, the halftime show, the commercials, and everything else that is popping in the world of sports. And what's the latest on Tom Brady? We'll get into that. And Daniel Snyder, is he on his way out as owner of the Washington Commanders? Lots more to talk about in the 8 o'clock hour. You can join us 800-707-9760 and your chance to win $1,000 coming up at 8:20. Don't go anywhere. We're hanging out with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! I saw earlier John Williams mentioned director Ivan Reitman died, apparently unexpected and in his sleep. He directed Animal House, Ghostbusters, Stripes, and Meatballs. He was working on a sequel to Twins, which starred Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was in pre-production. And apparently just died in his sleep. So, very sad. But those were in the 80s, man. Those were some big movies. Steve Duraco, good morning. Steve Duraco, the original Rock. Oh, when The Rock was on yesterday, Steve, my wife Beth was in the other room, and I said, "Hey, The Rock's on screen." And she said, "The original Rock?" I go, "No, not the original Rock. That other Rock." Because the original Rock is Steve Duraco, as we all know. I think they should have had the original Rock at the Super Bowl, or The Rock and the original Rock would have been interesting. I did not know that, Sam, that Ivan Reitman's son, Jason, directed a movie, or a Ghostbusters sequel. All right. Woo!
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide.
I have to mute for a moment for our friends at Facebook.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is the day after Super Bowl 56, the traditional beginning of the dark ages in sports, when our beloved sport of football comes to an end. But as Shannon said earlier in the show, it's always football season on this show because we love football. We talk football, and there's always stuff going on in and around the sport of football, college and pro. Welcome in the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Jeremy KOLOK is your Soundscape stylist. And speaking of football never ends, Shannon, did you hear the crazy story about Adrian Peterson yesterday?
Yeah. That Adrian Peterson arrested while I think boarding a flight to Houston for domestic violence, which I mean, timing, I prior to that over the weekend, there was a story about him saying, he's ready. He can jump back into the league. He can still play. Not after this headline.
Yeah. And apparently he was arrested yesterday morning at Los Angeles International Airport. According to airport police, they received a call about 8:30 in the morning about a possible domestic violence on board an aircraft bound for Houston, a verbal and physical altercation between a male suspect and a female victim. He was booked at the Pacific Division precinct of the LAPD, $50,000 bail, and he was released in the afternoon on bond. A representative for his wife, Ashley, said in a statement that the two had a verbal argument on the flight. No matter what, I mean, this is god awful. Adrian Peterson, Shannon, he had the issue, I think, with his son a number of years ago, where he was, apparently he believes in discipline and spanking and punishing his son physically that got him into trouble. So no matter what, not a way you want to make headlines on Super Bowl Sunday, the way Adrian Peterson did yesterday.
Yeah, and you mentioned the case with the son. That's the first thing I thought of, which is unfortunately, it's not uncommon for people who commit any sort of domestic violence to be repeat offenders. And so, again, I don't think we'll see him back in the league. I don't know, obviously, the circumstances of what went on specifically and what might come of it, but not the headlines he wants to be making when days prior he's talking up Super Bowl with other guys and putting himself back out there and being seen, and then that only just makes this story now that much bigger.
And you mentioned Adrian Peterson saying, "Hey, man, I can still play. Let me back into this league." That's got to be the toughest part of being a football player, and a very good football player, if not a great football player. And I think we can put Adrian Peterson in the great category, like a Tom Brady, is leaving the game that you have played since you were a kid, and you are great at it, but Father Time is undefeated, and eventually you have to step away from the game. And of course, this was a big story last week, Shannon. Tom Brady originally retiring, and as we know, he is retired, but on that podcast that he does for Sirius XM, saying you never say never, and the door is still open. And while when Tom Brady made that decision to step away from football, as we know, he's had a great year, still at the top of his game. 3 weeks later, how does he feel now? How's he going to feel on March 1st? At the end of February, you still don't know. Obviously, it seems like a decision, he made with his family, Giselle, his wife, his kids. But what do you make of where we are with Tom Brady right now?
I believe over the weekend I saw some paparazzi shots of him and Giselle on some beach somewhere, holding hands, going for a nice walk, which is different than what we've seen before, right? We're no stranger to seeing Brady on the beach on vacation, but typically it's like an early morning workout because he chose to work out on vacations and get runs in. And then, people like to run in the sand because of, what it can do to help build muscle. And instead, this was very much a relaxed photo of Tom Brady, something we don't get quite often. And then yesterday, he posted a picture of his phone's lock screen, and he had a calendar notification pop up, and it said Super Bowl today, 12 p.m., Los Angeles. And his response to that photo that he posted on Twitter was a 4-letter word. We're not going to say it, but making fun of himself for not getting there, even though no one else is making fun of him for it because he's been there plenty of times. But I am seeing a lot of rumblings of like, is he trying to get to the 49ers? Right? Because the 49ers, not just the weird story that's where Jimmy Garoppolo happens to be, but that's the team he grew up loving. He's from the area, obviously. And I think he enjoyed the weather and kind of the change up and going to a different team like the Bucks. Why not try that again with a team that you always probably dreamed of playing for? I just don't know. Like that division right now, that is a tough division to go play in. I mean, when he was with the Patriots, they were able to run the table in that division. The Buccaneers did it all but for the Saints, but now that Drew Brees is out, that they pretty much have a pretty easy walk to winning that division. You can't really say the same. I mean, the 49ers, yes, they made it into the playoffs, but they were the third string of their division to get into the playoffs. And then you look at the Rams in that division, just won the whole thing. So I don't know how much sense it would make as far as him saying that is in fact what's happening, but people love to talk, and it wouldn't be all that surprising if he did come out and say, just kidding, I'm Tom Brady. I'm still good enough to play. Let me play.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw that with Brett Favre as well. When Brett Favre, there was a while when he was kind of forced out by the Packers, and he said, okay, I will retire. Then he came back and he said, okay, no, I won't. So you wonder, and there is the talk that you just mentioned about the 49ers and with Jimmy Garoppolo moving on, Trey Lance going to be relatively untested if they hand the keys to him. And then there's some thought that Brady might just stay in shape, into the season. And if anybody has the need for a quarterback, if there's a quarterback injury and or say if the 49ers were floundering with Trey Lance, that Brady could make himself available and could, obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would have his rights and some kind of a deal would have to be arranged. But I think probably if you're the Buccaneers and Brady, they probably, with a lifetime achievement award and goodwill to give Brady what he wants. If a team was willing to offer something up to the Bucs, they might facilitate a deal like that would be good for them and good for Tom Brady, because otherwise, if he just retires, they get nothing for him. So it's going to be interesting. You talk about, Shannon, how, football wise, even though the season's over, football never ends because there's all of these stories out there. The whole Brady mystery might continue into the season. We might be week 5 into the season next year and even midway point of the next season and not know absolutely for sure if Brady's absolutely gone or if somebody might bring him back or if he wants to come back.
Well, and you think about, there's been a bit of a shift, right, in quarterback play and where the most talented quarterbacks are, and that they all seem to be in the AFC now. And then you have this Aaron Rodgers question where he's the reigning league MVP back-to-back and with the Packers, of course, in the NFC. And he's kind of like by far and away the best one of the NFC. Well, what if he did jump to the Broncos? What if he did go to the AFC? Would that just be an easier kind of road to the Super Bowl in the eyes of Tom Brady to say, I can run the table and at least get to another Super Bowl to give myself another shot?
Yeah. And if you're Tom Brady, and again, statistically, he had such a good year this year, he's got to believe he could do something like that. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And I'm speaking of retirement, Aaron Donald, who is so phenomenal, I'm now hearing, rumbling that Aaron Donald might retire. He's only 30 years old, Shannon. There is something to be said for if you got all the money you need, but nobody really, no matter how much money you have, few people go, oh, I got enough money. I can go make millions of more dollars doing something I'm great at, and maybe I'm the best defensive player arguably in the NFL, but to be able to walk away and pull a John Elway or a David Robinson and retire after you win a championship, there's something to be said for that. What do you think of those saying that Aaron Donald might be considering retirement after winning the Super Bowl last night?
I don't know that it's like the craziest thing. And I don't know if he's like said prior to the Super Bowl that he was maybe considering it. But with where the Rams are now, we know that they sold their soul to get this Super Bowl ring this year, and that team is probably not going to look similar in next year or even the coming years, unless players are willing to get paid less than maybe they would get elsewhere. And for what he's done physically at that old age of 30, I think he'll be 31 in May. Why not walk away while you're on top and have all that money made? If you want to stay with the Rams, you're probably looking at this saying, listen, we'll be okay, but I don't think we're going to get back to another Super Bowl. So I've got mine. Let me go ahead and move on elsewhere. I'd love to see him continue playing. Obviously, he's a huge asset to that team. I mean, when they got Von Miller originally this season, it was, oh my gosh, look how incredible it's going to be. Well, it was still the Aaron Donald story. Von Miller really didn't even come on till later in the season. So that'd be a hit to the league and a hit to the Rams for sure. But I don't know. When do you make that decision, do you think? Because he's not a Tom Brady where it's like been in the back of his mind for years and years, probably. I mean, this is now a moment in time.
Yeah, and unlike Tom Brady, playing that position, at defensive tackle, I mean, just the wear and tear and the beating on your body, although he is great and one of the greatest defensive tackles in the game, there's something to be said for. We saw Barry Sanders walk away from the game early, and something, Barry Sanders at running back that we didn't know when Barry Sanders retired early, and a lot of people thought he had more years left in him. Now you got the whole CTE thing, Shannon. If you're, you have some players now, choosing to leave the game early just because they realize, they look at other players and they look to the future, and they say, I want a good quality of life 20, 30 years from now. And, if you're Aaron Donald, you have made a lot of money. You have done everything there is to do in this game. So it is an interesting proposition to then step away, and you've got so much money, you can create your own businesses and other things you can do in life. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what he does. You mentioned Von Miller. And again, Shannon, you and I watched the pregame show yesterday. And I'll tell you what, I'll jump into the Von Miller thing that we learned yesterday in a moment. Since we're coming up on 8:20, we'll again start this just a few seconds early, perhaps. We do it at 8:20 and on the 20s throughout the morning, starting at 7:20, and we go all the way to 6:20 in the evening. Somebody wins $1,000 every hour on the 20s. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. So right now, somebody's going to win $1,000. And yes, it could be you when you get this keyword and take it to the websites. Here's the keyword.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Hope. That's hope. Enter it on our station website now.
Hope. You take hope to either or, and we suggest both to double your chances to win. Websites, am1300thezone.com and ticket760.com. It'll be very obvious where you put that keyword hope, and you're in the running. Somebody's going to win $1,000. It may as well be you. So what we learned in pregame that I didn't know, Shannon, throughout the playoffs, Von Miller brought the Vince Lombardi trophy, a replica, I am assuming, of the one that he won with the Denver Broncos. It even had the score on it. They showed it, had that in the locker room throughout practice and, in all of the games leading up to the Super Bowl, so that the Rams could see what the goal was, visualize it. It's Von Miller knew what it was like to win one of those, and he wanted the Rams, and he wanted to win another one with the Rams. I thought that was kind of a very cool motivational symbol that Von Miller decided to bring into the locker room for the Rams, and it kind of worked out for him.
Yeah, and obviously, he wouldn't shy away from it. He jumped ship from Denver to the Rams middle of the season because he felt like that was his best opportunity to get back to a Super Bowl and to win the whole thing. And so I like it. If you got it, why not? I don't, that's interesting. I don't know how many players end up like getting a replica of the Super Bowl trophies that they win. Probably far and few. But I do like that as motivation. I don't know, maybe if some guys on the team are kind of like, that's maybe a little weird. Like we're not the Denver Broncos, we're the Rams, and that maybe they'd be a little standoffish and not get with it. But now he can bring around the Rams one instead. He doesn't need to carry around the Broncos one anymore, or he'll just carry both if he wants a third.
I will never forget, and Von Miller, a Texas Aggie, had a great career in college as an Aggie. I will never forget that when he was coming up for the NFL draft, he said he grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan in the great state of Texas, wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy. He grew up in DeSoto, Texas, wound up being the number 2 pick in the 2011 draft. And he said before that draft, Shannon, as we recall, he said, Jerry Jones, come get me. I want to be a Cowboy. Trade up. Get me. And you got to wonder now, you know, the Cowboys so many times, and that was obviously the bulk of that in the Tony Romo era. You know, if Von Miller had become a Dallas Cowboy, if Jerry Jones would have heeded his wish and found a way to trade up and go get Von Miller, might he have been a missing piece that could have gotten the Dallas Cowboys over the hump? I mean, we've seen the Cowboys screw it up and Jerry Jones screw it up so many times since 1996 and Super Bowl 30. As I ask that question, my immediate brain response is probably not, but it would have been cool if Von Miller's wish would have come true and he could have been a Dallas Cowboy all these years.
I mean, honestly, forget about like trying to appease to Jerry Jones about bringing like actual on-field talent. Why not the fact that he went to Texas A&M and was huge for Jerry Jones is all about making money and selling jerseys and selling product. Dude was a beast at A&M, you know, similar to that to me is what he was thinking when he wanted to draft Johnny Manziel. He was seeing only that piece at that time and maybe not the disaster that surrounded him, but guys like that who grew up in the state of Texas, played their college ball in the state of Texas, made a name for themselves, are worthy of a great NFL career. And Jerry Jones is like, I don't know, I'm not really a fan of where you went to school, so we're gonna probably pass on you. That doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. Like Earl Thomas.
And they're
like, come on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as you've been lobbying for Dicker the Kicker now,
well,
you saw that career south of Dallas in Austin.
We have I think his first name's Chris Nagar, who they just signed. We'll see if he makes it through, but he's from that area. He grew up in the Arlington area.
Kicker.
Yeah, wrong. But do you sign the one that left Texas to go to SMU in favor of Dicker the Kicker? Way to go.
Yeah, and the other thing that strikes me about Von Miller and coming out of Texas A&M wanting to be a Dallas Cowboy, you know, there's that old adage, watch what you wish for, watch what you ask for, because you might just get it. Mm-hmm. Von Miller is probably a lucky, he's got 2 rings now, one with the Broncos, one with the Rams.
Yes.
And if he'd have gone to the Cowboys, he might have been like a DeMarcus Lawrence, a guy who's really, really, really good, but you're a Cowboy. So guess what? No soup for you, no Super Bowl for you.
Yeah.
And so, it all worked out for Von Miller. And maybe the best thing that ever happened to him was the fact that Jerry Jones didn't trade up and go get him.
I would agree. And with last night's win and his performance, he's now tied with a Hall of Famer, Charles Haley, for multiple sacks in different Super Bowls. And oh, by the way, he won those Super Bowls. So, I mean, his case for the Hall of Fame, I don't think he'd have that in Dallas, especially without, those playoff appearances, Super Bowl appearances, whatever.
And Charles Haley, I mean, it's a different era, but you look at how the Cowboys acquired him. He was a San Francisco 49er. They were an arch rival of the Cowboys, going to Super Bowls in the same era. The Haley was kind of a problem child. So Jerry Jones found a way to trade for and get Charles Haley, bring him to the Cowboys in an era that you also brought Deion Sanders to the Cowboys. We talk about how the Rams built themselves into this Super Bowl contender by getting some big names in free agency. Maybe it's time for Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and the Dallas Cowboys to learn a little something from the Rams. We will talk more Super Bowl. We will talk about everything else that is popping in the world of sports. You can jump in as well, 800-707-9760, or on the live video feed via Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, Jeremy KOLOK, your Soundscape stylist, making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show.
For many hours and days that pass ever soon. The tides of gold, the flame to dim.
Jesse Bratton saying Tom Brady should stay retired. Should have gone out on top last year. Jason Paniagua about Aaron Donald says the NFL Network asked him directly. He said he's going to see how he feels in a couple of weeks. Oh, we got to talk Mattress Mac. We haven't done that yet. Jeremy KOLOK, working hard, making the show go. One more segment. Woo! All right. All right. Woo! Let's see here. Charge my phone. Here we come.
I think Shannon can
Okay.
hear us right now.
All right. Shannon might have a. Oh, there she goes. She's
Okay,
back. I get a thumbs up.
Okay.
Shannon, Mattress Mac. Have you tracked his winnings, actually losings yesterday?
Oh, Matt, we're talking Mattress Mac. Sorry, during commercial break, everything just went dark in our entire office, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Wow.
great." So I think we're back online. Perfect. Yes, Mattress Mac. So a lot of people know that he bet on the Super Bowl, mostly for the Bengals. In total, he bet $9.5 million on the 2022 Super Bowl. So that's a loss after the Rams beat the Bengals. But since January 1st, he's bet a total of $15.43 million because he had picked Alabama to win the national championship. Beginning of the playoffs, he picked the Patriots. Then he picked the Titans, and then he picked the Bengals.
Yikes.
What kind of money do you have that you can just throw that around and you lose that much money and it means nothing?
Well, but you see, I'm wondering now, do the mattresses start going up? If you want to buy a mattress from Mattress Mac, is he going to start jacking up the prices now?
Right. Like, yeah. Does he do anything else other than sell mattresses? Because that's a lot of money for mattresses.
It's a great question.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. There's got to be something else. Maybe he's a drug lord and we don't even know that. And he's making his money somewhere else. That's a good question.
Yeah. Or he's
We
got a
gotta look-
gambling problem and gambles on so many other things that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
And he is winning those bets.
I've always thought that mattress stores could be a decent money laundering front because how many mattress firms do you see like in one concentrated area, and people aren't buying mattresses that often.
It's a great point.
Yeah, so I don't want to call out Mattress Mac because he did. I believe he's the guy who opened up his store during Hurricane Harvey, right? For people to have a place to seek shelter if they needed it. So I mean, from my accounts, he seems like a decent guy, but yeah, with all this money he's losing and this theory I have on mattress stores, it really makes a guy wonder.
And that's kind of fascinating that you bring up, and it goes back Hurricane Harvey, Mattress Mac opening up his store so people who, lost their homes during the hurricane have a place to go, and the homeless, while Joel Osteen with his mega church said, nope, sorry, we're, no room at the inn here. So way to go, Mattress Mac. But I never thought about that. And you're right. There's mattress firms everywhere. There's a lot of mattress companies, and people, you don't buy a mattress.
Yeah, go
other
after
than
the
every
show,
few years. Yeah.
Go on to your Apple Maps or Google Maps or whatever. And if you're listening, I encourage you and just type in mattress firm. And I don't know, maybe just search in Dallas or something, because this is where I tested it out. There are so many in one, in concentrated areas. It makes no sense. I don't get how they make that much money.
Mattress stores are like the Walgreens and the CVS. You see one, and there's like one that's going to be across the street of the other kind, and they all have mattress in the title. I couldn't tell you the difference.
See, it's so weird. People grow. It's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I want to play sports. I want to play football, or I want to get into radio or TV and talk about. Nobody says, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I want to get into mattresses, man. They're everywhere, and you can make a ton of money selling mattresses. How do you get into that business? I don't know. Mattress Mac did.
Yeah,
it's working out for him.
I mean, he sells his whole business is gallery furniture store. So they have more than just mattresses, but even still, come on.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. All right. As you said early in the show, and it makes me feel better, Shannon, because even though football season ended last night with the end of the Super Bowl, football season never really ends. There's always lots of football to talk about. And the Indianapolis Colts, and I must admit, thanks to Hard Knocks, their in-season Hard Knocks with the Indianapolis Colts. I watched every episode of it, and Hard Knocks, once again, it has never failed to create great television, in my opinion. I really wound up going, man, I like the players on the Colts. I really like Frank Reich as head coach. He's a good man. I like his style. I like the way he motivates the players. But what I did notice, the weak link on that Indianapolis Colts team, especially when they needed him late in the season in those final 2 regular season games, they just had to win one of those games. And the closer was at Jacksonville against the god-awful Jacksonville Jaguars. Carson Wentz could not deliver the goods for the Indianapolis Colts. And what's the latest on the Colts and Carson Wentz, Shannon?
So come March 19th, Carson will be owed his $15 million base salary. It would become fully guaranteed. So the rumor now is that they will look to either release him or get a trade for him. As we know, the biggest ability in these types of leagues, of all professional leagues, is your availability. And Carson Wentz just hasn't been available for what his price tag has been. And on top of that, sometimes when he is available, because he's coming off of injuries, he's nursing something. He's not up to snuff. He's not that quarterback that was having that MVP run before that first really big major injury. And you think of, Sam Ellinger's on that roster. I don't know that that's who they'll immediately turn to, but he's on one of those rookie deals, right? And so you might as well see what you have there versus Carson, who that's a lot of money to pay a guy who isn't available for you, and when he is, he's not 100%.
Well, and it was Frank Reich, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, who worked with and got to know and believed in Carson Wentz when he was an Eagle, when Frank Reich was on the Eagles staff. So, and Carson Wentz had some good seasons as the Eagles quarterback, and he had a good season when they went to the Super Bowl before he got injured, and then Nick Foles leads them to the Super Bowl, and it happens. But Shannon, you look at that Indianapolis Colts roster, and I mean, obviously Jonathan Taylor at running back, quite possibly, and I think arguably the best running back in football this year. They've got some really good receivers in Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton. It was a team that if Carson Wentz would have delivered the goods, was good enough to be a playoff team. So now, here we are talking about guys with question marks like Aaron Rodgers. Does he want out of the Packers? And if the Packers traded him, if he said, I'm going to retire or you trade me, and obviously we don't believe the Packers would trade him to an NFC team. So there's a lot of talk about the Denver Broncos. But so Indianapolis is a possibility maybe for Aaron Rodgers. And then we just talked about Tom Brady. And what if Tom Brady gets the itch again? And you look at the Buccaneers, and they're going to lose more players to free agency. They're not going to be as good as they used to be. So you would think Brady would want to go to a team that he thinks he can get to a Super Bowl. So would Brady be a possibility? And you bring up Sam Ehlinger, who's currently the number 2 quarterback. There's some intrigue there for those of us, and I'm one of them, who is a fan of Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah. And then you add in just all of the other drama, throw in Aaron Rodgers, Kyler Murray as the developments of last week, right? Does he want to move on and go elsewhere? That would be a super interesting story to see him be on that Colts team with a Sam Ehlinger, because we all know how that meeting went center field after their first meeting at the Red River Shootout when Texas ended up winning. It was Kyler's first loss that he's ever suffered, and they did not have a great meeting at center field at that time. So that alone, I'd be interested to see what that looks like. But I don't know because the Colts too, you think of that division as a whole with Jacksonville, who, yes, they have Trevor Lawrence, but it's going to take some time for them to build what they're hoping to make out of the Jaguars with a guy like Trevor Lawrence. The Texans are just in complete disarray. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the Titans, obviously, they're going to be fine. So really, they're vying for that second spot and hopefully get a win or two over the Titans throughout the season to try and get that first seed from their division. So they're in a good spot. They just need the right guy to do it. And if it's not Carson Wentz, that's going to be huge for the offseason. But I like your idea of maybe an Aaron Rodgers going there.
Man, if they could,
that fan base, I think, would love him after losing Andrew the way they did, Andrew Luck.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd be all over it.
Absolutely. So keep an eye on the Indianapolis Colts on a lot of levels. Shannon, we talked about Jeremy's very excited about Oklahoma State, their basketball team taking on Kansas tonight. We have developments over the weekend. Texas, the men's basketball team, Baylor beat them pretty significantly. So what's the current state of the Texas Longhorns men's basketball team?
Texas in the Big 12 currently sits at 4th at 7-5 in the conference. That loss to Baylor certainly didn't help. Baylor, of course, doing pretty well this season. They're the reigning NCAA champions, and they're currently number 10 in the country. Texas will take on Oklahoma, which is always a huge game, whether or not the teams are ranked. Texas still at number 20. That could change, of course, this week, and Oklahoma not ranked. The big one is going to be Saturday. Kegs and Eggs, 11:30 at Club Irwin. Texas Tech is in town, and we know what went down when they played each other in Lubbock pretty recently, but matchup number 2 just around the corner for these two teams.
And how do you feel? Do you think the venue makes that much difference? Obviously, Texas Tech in Lubbock. We talked about it. People were camping out, wanting to, yell things at Chris Beard. Now with that game being played in Austin, what do you think the prospects are for the Longhorns?
You talk about venue. Listen, Chris Beard is trying, but Club Irwin has never been seen as a tough place to play. Head coach of the Mountaineers even said once, it doesn't put fear into you at all. I can hear people talking in the stands. They can probably hear me coaching my team. It's so quiet in there. Chris Beard is going to have to do everything in his power to get students and fans to come out at an 11:30 a.m. tip on Saturday morning to cheer on this team. And from rumblings of people, Wes and Clint, who comment so often, are resident Texas Tech fans here on the show, that Texas Tech fans are buying up a lot of those tickets. So as far as home court advantage, I don't see it being for Texas, unfortunately.
My goodness, that'll be certainly something to keep an eye on. And tonight, Spurs back in action. They've won 2 in a row. They're 2-1 on the rodeo road trip. They've won 3 out of their last 4, if you count their last home game against the Houston Rockets, which they won. And Shannon, as we move through this week, Wednesday night will be the final Spurs game before the NBA All-Star weekend begins. DeJounte Murray's been a madman lately. He got a triple-double the other night to move ahead of David Robinson on the all-time Spurs triple-double list. He got number 15 overall, number 11 of this season. And in 2 consecutive games, he had something like 63 points, 27 rebounds, like 18 assists. DeJounte Murray certainly making it clear, yes, he did deserve, which he got, to be named to that NBA All-Star squad.
Yeah, an All-Star weekend, I think a great way to kind of come down from the Super Bowl and the lack of the NFL. My off season of football, it's like me trying to string together weekends of sport, because during the football season, I'm like, oh, I can't go to your thing or whatever. Like, I have football to watch, or even if I want to have plans but don't have plans, I'm like, well, there's football on. That's always good. Now I'm like, what am I doing with myself this weekend? I have to plan ahead. And luckily for me, I do think I have the next couple of weekends planned out, so I'll be okay. But this weekend's plan is definitely involving NBA All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, so it is time now. And now I can start paying attention to the NBA and college basketball and the Winter Olympics. You mentioned the Phoenix Open. We might even start talking a little more golf on this show. But we will always talk football. And we do have this thing called the USFL, which is more football, and more football is good football. Shannon Salty Sweeney, an outstanding Valentine's day after the Super Bowl. Enjoyed it. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
And Jeremy KOLOK, you will be basking in the glow of hopefully an Oklahoma State win over Kansas. You're with us tomorrow morning, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I will be here.
Beautiful. That was fun. Thanks to both of you. Thanks to Coach A, Paul Alexander. Coming up, Dan, Patrick, and company nationally, but here on AM 1300, The Zone out of Austin, Ticket 760 out of San Antonio, and on the 20s, 20 after each hour, your chance to win $1,000. For Shannon Salty Sweeney and Jeremy KOLOK, and thank you, Paul Alexander. I'm Chris. We'll see you in 21 hours. Have yourself a great Monday. Stone, Jason Paniagua, Warren Wheeler, Jesse Bratton, Sam Tobias, Luisa Alanis, Beth Settle, anybody who might be here still. See you during the Spurs game tonight. Enjoy your Monday.